Hey YouTubers, morning, Robb. Guys, they want to talk about the Insta360 One RS 4K. If you're watching this video is going to be for two people, groups of people. One, people who are thinking about buying this camera, or you've already bought it. I watched a lot of videos before I purchased this camera, and even after I purchased it, I still end up watching more videos. And I thought it would be a good video to do because I haven't seen anybody who's just like a regular guy talking about how this camera performed for them. Almost all the videos I saw were professionals, really experienced professional videographers and photographers talking about the camera or comparing it to the GoPro. But I didn't see anybody who was just like a regular guy who's going to have trouble maybe hooking it up, and what they went through, and also how it performed for them. So I came up with all the reasons in the last week since I've been using it, why I like it, and the reasons I don't. Spoiler alert, even though there's a lot of reasons that are negative, they're not deal breakers for me. They may be for you. But this video is a little bit long. Most of my videos have got 1,200. I've been making them since 2007, one a week. Most of mine are kind of short. This one, because of the different things we're going to be talking about, it's going to be long. So down at the bottom, if you're watching on the computer, there's a real circle. You can speed up this video. If you're watching on a mobile device, there's three little dots on the right side, ellipsis. So you can click on that, and you can adjust the speed so you can go much faster. I won't be upset if you speed up my voice. Also, there should be time stamps. And if you're having difficulty with my accent or my enunciation, I'll be leaving a closed caption. So let's go over the reasons I like it and I don't like it. Perhaps first I should start why I purchased it. This is an action camera. This is not an action fade. I'm a dinosaur. What am I going to use an action camera for? Well, I wanted something when I go fishing or metal detecting that has loop recording, so it would record, and then when I found something or caught something, it would record like for the last minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then I wouldn't have like an hour or two of tape or tape. Dinosaur. I said I was a dinosaur. I wouldn't have a really long recording, just small files, and that would help with the editing. Or I don't really do editing. I just cut and paste. So also I wanted voice control, and it does have. We'll talk about that when we get to the negative part. So that was also, I want to do some kite aerial photography, and this is very light, and all of my other cameras are really heavy. So that was the reason I purchased it. So, and it does have loop control. I tested it out, and it does have voice control. Now, what's the first reason? These reasons that are for and against aren't in order of importance. They're just the first things I thought of. One of the first things I thought of, well, one reason you might purchase this is because it's cheaper than the GoPro 10. I kind of think, after reading and so on, I've never experienced using a GoPro 10, but I kind of think it might have a slight edge in some areas with this camera. But for my purposes, I bought it. But the GoPro is a little more expensive, so that's number one. Number two, the second reason would be stabilization. I've only used stabilization with 3-axis gimbals with my phones. I use I buy really cheap phones, and they're old. They don't have stabilization. I use them because most of the time I'm on a tripod anyway, and I find I get a lot of good quality and good value. And if I want stabilization, I use a stabilizer. So that's the only thing I compare it to. And this stabilization is very smooth compared to my axis gimbal. I mean, they're axis gimbal, 3-axis gimbal is all good, but this is better, I think. So I can't compare this to the GoPro because I've not used the GoPro, but I was not unhappy with the stabilization. The third thing is, I've watched a lot of videos, and the images that the people are getting, not me yet, but that are using this camera are excellent. I think this camera is a better video recorder than I am a videographer. I think it's a better camera than I am a photographer, probably. I think it's capable of doing more than I'm capable of achieving so far. But I'm not looking forward to putting stuff into editors and color correcting and doing, I mean, get in and get out. So if you're looking for really high quality, I think it's capable, but I'm not there yet. There are certain settings that um, when I want to shoot, I don't want to spend 5 minutes setting stuff up, and that's my fault. It's not the camera's fault. But I think it's capable of getting very good quality for an action camera. Next thing is waterproofing. Years ago, I actually manufactured and sold underwater video camera housings for large video cameras. And the main problem you're going to have with the video camera housing underwater is leaks. And the more places you have for leaks, the more opportunities you have for really, really unhappy customers. This camera, it's modular. It's not one piece, it's 3 pieces. You take it apart. Each one of those places where you take it apart is another opportunity for you to have a freaking leak. It's like, this tells me that this company spent a lot of time in research and development and making something that's really superior so they don't get any leaks, which you get leaks eventually for different reasons. But if they spent that amount of time and energy to make something as high quality to stop the water in so many places compared to other cameras, that tells me maybe they spent the same quality and time in other parts of manufacturing the camera. So I was impressed. If you, we'll talk about some of the weak areas, I think, and how you should probably end up using a waterproof housing anyway if you go in the water. But speaking from experience, this was an impressive, considering how the whole thing comes apart on 3 pieces, and each one of those is an area where you can get leaks. I mean, this is why the case is here, to compress it, to keep it. But it only, they guarantee it down to only like a shallow area. But the cool thing about underwater housings is the deeper you go, the more pressure you get. So it seals even better. I had more problems getting watertight seals on underwater housings at very shallow depths because there was enough pressure to press on the seal. And if you had any freaking bit of pocket lint or tiny bit of grain of sand or something in the seal, you got water coming through. So this, I'm kind of impressed with Insta that they would put their money on the lines, and your average consumer out there using this, you're not going to get a leak if you go down to just so many feet. Well, I'm kind of impressed. I know other cameras have the same guarantee, but they're like all one piece. They don't come apart in 3 places. So that was surprising. I like the fact that it has an audio input port so you can use different microphones. I also like the fact that they sell a rather inexpensive converter that allows you to use a 3.5 millimeter input jack, and it also has a I think this is a I was impressed that the company supports older versions of the camera so they don't leave you out in the cold. If you had an earlier version of this, most of this is, since it's modular, it works with the previous version, not all parts, but so that was kind of impressive to me. Nobody mentioned this next part. When I take a recording, as soon as I finish recording, I can take my finger and just swipe up, and now I have access to the video I just recorded. So on other cameras I've used, many, I've had to go to like a different folder or another part of the file system, or maybe even 2 steps to get to where I want to look at what I just recorded. Not with this. As soon as it's finished recording, take my finger, I'm in. So I was really happy with that, and I haven't seen anybody else mention that. Maybe because I don't use action cameras, and maybe that's a common feature now. So, but it was very welcome to me. You have HDR, but it gives you much more vivid colors, also more detail in the shadows and so on. if you have a lot of light. But you can use it while moving, where before it was just you had to use that when you were stationary shot. So that's kind of impressive. One of the most important things is that when I take this apart, it will fit in this bag, which will fit in my pocket. The best camera that you have is the one that you have with you. If it's a really big camera that you need a separate bag and so on, I'm not going to take it with me. That's why I ended up using phones a lot, because they're always with me. So the fact that it fits in my pocket is of course, this will not fit in my pocket, and I'll need this in the second pocket. But I'm working on this. So, but yeah, this will fit in my pocket in this little bag. Another thing I haven't seen anybody mention that I like, when I'm using the phone that I'm being recorded on right now, when I'm out in the bright sun, I can't see the settings or anything. It'll go dark and I can't go get into where I want to lighten up the screen. Where this, when I was out in the sun, I could see and access all of the symbols and so on. So that's very important, and it was something I was really happy about. I'm not a big phone person. Like I said, I'm a dinosaur. Until very recently, within the last year, I didn't even use a smartphone. I use an old flip phone. And so I'm still getting into the phone thing. The fact that it transfers all the video to a phone, I didn't think that would be something I would care about. But I do know the world is going to mobile and everybody is doing everything on their phones. And I need to progress. So I was kind of surprised at how cool it was to transfer this immediately to my phone. So if this was to be damaged or something was to happen, I would have that on my phone as like a backup. And there's also, now that I'm thinking about doing kite photography, I think there's a way I can connect and control the phone or the camera with my phone. So that will be another feature. So the phone features, even though, like I said, I'm a dinosaur, it's kind of cool. I mentioned that it has looping and voice control, which was the main reasons I purchased it. The other thing that's cool about it is that you can take this apart and put your LCD screen that you watch with on the front. So if you're doing selfies or vlogs, you could see yourself. Years ago, back in the old days, I used to use the little Kodak PlaySport, and I put a little mirror on the front so I could see myself, and I positioned it after experimentation to where it was pretty accurate. So I was thinking about just putting a little mirror here so I could keep the screen on the back, and in the mirror I could just see myself and see if I was in the frame. So I may do that. So those are kind of the positives. What about the negatives? The first negative would be image artifacts. A couple of times when I was filming, and it might have been on automatic focus, and it was just a shot of the sky, and there wasn't any clouds. There was a lot of artifacts, like a different color part of the sky appeared, and it was amorphous. It was just floating around. It reminded me. I purchased one time one of the really cheap knockoffs. It's supposed to be 4K. They're garbage. But it was like $50 or something, and the image quality, you end up getting artifacts, and it reminded me of the old cheap old garbage. So I haven't noticed it, but just a couple times, and it was really bright and it was up in the sky. I'm going to have to do more experimentation to see if it comes again and what settings I had. But if you're doing a lot of filming up in the sky, maybe you may have an issue. So that was something I'm kind of unhappy about. The biggest problem I've had, and the one that bothers me the most, is several times the screen was black. I had like the red light or the blue light or whatever. I don't remember what light it was. but the camera was on, it was functioning, but there was no screen. And when I pressed the button to turn it off, it wouldn't go off. And I tried different periods of time. I tried even pressing the other button. So eventually I had to open the cage, remove the camera, remove the battery, put the battery back in, put it back in the cage, then put it back. So it's an action camera. You don't want to have to disassemble your camera out in the field to get your camera to working again. So this has happened, I think, 3 times. So there's something going on, and it's not a deal breaker, because maybe it's something I'm doing. I don't know, but it's just something I thought I'd mention. Next one is we've got a little port cover. Let's pause. We've got a little port cover. There's another name for it, I'm sure. And it covers up where you keep your micro SD card and your little USB port. And there's a little dot on one side, and there's another dot over there. And then there's a hole, and there's another hole that's really your microphone. So you're supposed to press that in. And then there's a little slide. You want to slide you want to get these 2 legs in there, and then you watching me? You seeing how much time this is taking? Okay, I didn't get it in right. Let's go again. Get it in the freaking hole. Get the legs in on the other side. Push this in, or maybe get these legs on the other side first. There. And you see there's a little bit of yellow there. It looks like it's shut, but it's not. If you were to think that was closed and go out in the water, you'd be screwed. You got it. Now, it's in, but you got to press it back over to the other side. Now you don't see the yellow. But if you didn't push that little slot back, you'd be screwed. So what do we have here? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow. And they went out of business. In the meantime, that's garbage. That's freaking garbage. Now, don't ask me. I shouldn't complain and criticize unless I have a solution. And I don't really have a solution. I wonder what they could do. That's going to ruin a lot of cameras. Also, that little part, it's fiddly and you lose it. They're not cheap to replace. Something else I thought I'd mention is that I used a converter with a wireless mic like the one you're listening to now, and it doesn't work. To be fair, though, the wireless mic did not work with my cell phones until I downloaded a program called Open Camera. So it's probably just a software thing they could do. If you purchase your camera and your microphone doesn't work, this is a TRS. It's got 3 rings. This is a TR. It's got 2 rings. You want a converter that converts to the TR. That way it will connect to your device. Otherwise, you probably won't be able to use it. But they're really inexpensive. Something else I noticed is that it's very slow to start. Even if you use the setting that allows you to just have it start once you press the on button, it's about 7 seconds, which for an action camera, I just think that's a little slow. And if you don't use that setting, it takes you more than 7 seconds. So it's not a big thing, but for some people it might be. Some people it could be the main thing. We're back in business. When I first hooked up the camera to my computer, after I had recorded, I got a error message that said I need to format the disk, even though I had formatted it. So that was a big headache. I had to remember how to use the check disk program to check and repair the little disk. And I thought that would be over. I would do it one time, but then the other day I had to do it again. So I don't know if it's my computer or the disk or the camera, but if you get an error message that you need to format, I did a little video on how to use the check disk command, so you could not have to lose all of your video. I have tried a few times, not enough perhaps, to have a preset and save it, and I wasn't able to preset or save the preset for my my controls, and I was kind of disappointed. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it just wasn't working. I don't have to use presets, but it would be handy because sometimes I'm out there filming and I think it's on stabilization maximum, and it's not. And now I come back and then everything's jittery. So I don't like to have to spend 5 minutes to make sure everything is cool before I press the button to record. It just it's this is the first camera I used when I first started YouTube back in 2007. You had a dongle, you had it on and off, and you're off to the races. You know, so I'm kind of spoiled. Another thing is, I know they have tutorials on the phone, but like I said, I'm not a phone person. I was hoping they just had something. They probably do, but I didn't search a lot, but I didn't see anything on the computer that would have a lot of to the point tutorials, short, about different subjects that would be classified by me as tutorials. So and if you get it out of the box, you should have something. Go to this place. You are a dummy. You need to look at this. You know. So I was kind of not disappointed, but yeah, I'm disappointed. If you're a geezer, if you're a dinosaur, if you're not used to phones, if you're not used to different cameras, there's going to be a learning curve. But I don't see where there's anything that's going to stop if you, the average person. But just like the settings for the mode and so on, there's like 4 different areas. But every camera's like that. No matter what camera you get, you're going to have a learning curve. It just it's not the fault of the camera. It's the fault that I haven't kept in tune with technology and using the latest gadgets. So other people are using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and different things where I'm having to figure out what the heck they're talking about. So it's not the fault of the camera. But if you are a dinosaur, there's going to be a learning curve, but it's not insurmountable. It's I would say it's pretty average. There's nothing that makes me want to throw it out the window, but I was there was a little bit more than I thought there would be. They say you don't need an underwater housing. You need an underwater housing. If you're using this as an action camera, if you're putting it in your pocket, you're going to get lint, you're going to get sand, dust, dirt. You're going to get stuff that shouldn't be where it is at, and it's going to cause an issue of leaks. If you're spending so much money, just spend another $20 and get yourself a waterproof housing, and I don't think you will regret it. This is a well-designed camera, but it's still a camera with seals and gaskets and places that fit together tight. And if you didn't put them back together tight, it only takes one time, and you're screwed. So spend a few bucks to get the waterproof housing. Also spend a few bucks to get a cover for your lens, because if you screw that up, you have a permanent image enhancement. Next thing is the voice control. I found it was a little hard of hearing. I had to repeat myself several times, and I kind of wish actually maybe it had some more controls, some other settings you could tell it to do. But that's not a negative feature. That's just an option I wish they would include. But yeah, it could do a better job of understanding what I was saying. The next one is not a criticism of the camera, but for people who are dinosaurs, once again, that's the last time I'm going to use that word. You got to ask yourself, why are you buying an action camera? If you're going to be using an action camera with this type of lens to film a lot of people and faces, use your phone. If you're a cheapskate like me, I'm using old phones, but most people don't do that. They have new phones, and the new phones probably take better images and better stabilization maybe than this. But the new phones are much more expensive, and you don't want to do action video with your very, very, very expensive phone. So I think that's one reason why you'd want to use this. But yeah, you got to ask yourself, why are you buying an action camera? Because most people, not me, but most people have phones in their pocket that are going to take better video and photo and probably better stabilization of people's faces, particularly and bodies. I don't like the fact that it seems I have to double check and make sure all the settings are correct before I record. And I think the last thing is, a lot of people need, next to the last thing, not everybody is aware that you're going to need a smartphone to get this going. If you don't have one, I don't see how you're going to be able to use this. So that could be a deal breaker for like 3% of the population, like I was until very recently. I do wish it had a pause control, but that's not a negative feature. That's just something I would wish they could include. So guys, this has been a long video. I hope it was something helpful to you. And if you have any constructive comments, leave them in the video description. I try to answer everybody's questions. And I have a playlist on gadgets and gear you can make with and for video cameras and regular cameras. You might be interested. I put on new stuff every single week. Been doing it for over 15 years and have over 1,200 videos, new stuff every single week. So hope this was something you might be interested in. Camera, make better video. All right, guys, take care. See you out there.